This story sounds like fiction, but every word is terrifyingly real. It's about wealth, betrayal, and how the person scrubbing your floors became the only thing standing between a billionaire and death. Maria was a 52-year-old immigrant who'd been cleaning houses for 30 years. When Elite Domestic Services sent her to the Whitmore estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, she thought it was her lucky break. The pay was double her normal rate, $4,000 a week. The only catch? She had to work alone. The family was away on business. The mansion was a fortress of white columns and crystal chandeliers on 40 acres of private land. But something felt wrong from day one. Spoiled food in the refrigerator, mail piling up for weeks, and that smell, metallic and sour, coming from somewhere she couldn't identify. The lawyer who met her at the gate made her sign a thick confidentiality agreement. He mentioned the house had security cameras everywhere. He warned her not to investigate any unusual sounds. Old houses settle, he said. Wildlife gets in the walls. It was an odd thing to say. On her third day, while mopping the kitchen floor, Maria heard it. A rhythmic tapping coming from below. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, 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 tap. Like Morse code echoing through the floorboards. She tried to ignore it, but the sound came again the next day and the day after that, always from the direction of a locked door off the kitchen, a door with a key hanging right beside it, almost mockingly accessible. On her 8th day, Maria made a decision that would change everything. She took the key and opened the door. The door revealed a staircase descending into darkness. Maria found a light switch, and a weak bulb flickered to life, casting more shadow than illumination. The stairs creaked under her weight. The air grew colder with each step, and that metallic smell got stronger. At the bottom, she found herself in a large basement with exposed stone walls and a concrete floor. Boxes and old furniture lined the walls, covered in dust. Everything looked abandoned. Then she heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. Louder now, coming from the far end. "Hello?" Maria called out, her voice barely a whisper. "Is someone there?" The tapping stopped. Then, from the darkness, came a voice. Hoarse, weak, desperate. "Help me." Maria's blood turned to ice. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her feet moved forward. She pulled out her phone, turned on the flashlight, and swept the beam across the darkness. That's when she saw him. A man was chained to the wall. He was skeletal, sitting on the concrete floor with metal cuffs around his wrists, attached to chains bolted into the stone. He wore what had once been expensive clothes, now filthy and torn. His face was covered in a weeks-old beard, and his sunken eyes squinted against her phone's light. "Please," he rasped. "Water." Maria couldn't process what she was seeing. A prisoner. In the basement. In the house she'd been cleaning for over a week. "Who are you?" she managed to ask. The man tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. Richard Whitmore. This is my house." The billionaire. The man who was supposed to be in Europe. "Oh my God, I'm calling the police." "No!" Richard's shout was surprisingly strong, filled with panic. "No police, please. If you call them, they'll kill me. They'll kill you. Just listen to me first." Maria's hand froze over her phone. "Who?" "My family," Richard said, tears streaming down his face. "My son did this to me." Maria sat down on the cold concrete, keeping a safe distance, her mind racing. Richard explained everything in a torrent of desperate words. His name was Richard Whitmore. He was 63 years old. He'd made his fortune in real estate and private equity. 6 weeks ago, his son Marcus had drugged him during dinner and brought him down here. $200 million, my life insurance policy. If I die, Marcus inherits everything immediately. But there's more. He's been embezzling from the company, hundreds of millions. The auditors were closing in. He needed me gone before they discovered what he'd done. Richard had been down here for 6 weeks. Marcus had been giving him just enough food and water to keep him alive, but barely. Richard had lost almost 70 pounds. His heart was failing. Every day he woke up surprised he'd made it through the night. He's waiting for me to die of natural causes. Starvation, dehydration, heart failure. Then it's not murder, just tragic circumstances. "But how has no one noticed you're missing?" Maria asked. "Because Marcus has been covering everything. He's been sending emails to my daughter in Singapore, pretending to be me. He forged my signature on documents, giving him power of attorney. He told my business partners I'm taking an extended personal leave. The lawyer you met, Gerald Pierce, he's in on it. Marcus probably paid him millions." Maria looked at her phone. She had to call someone, FBI, police, anyone. "If you call right now," Richard said, reading my mind, "Marcus will know. He's watching the security cameras. He'll see the police arrive, and he'll trigger his backup plan." "What backup plan?" "The house is wired with explosives. I heard him talking about it last week on the phone. If anything goes wrong, if anyone discovers me before I'm dead, he'll burn it all down. Gas leak, electrical fire, something. Everyone dies, and the evidence disappears." Maria felt sick. "So what do we do?" "We need proof," Richard said. "Undeniable, public proof that's already in the hands of authorities before Marcus knows we've acted. You're the first person to find me in 6 weeks. You're the first chance I've had. Please don't give up on me." Maria thought of her children, her grandchildren, the life she'd built through decades of hard work. She thought about running and never coming back. But she also thought about the man chained to the wall in front of her, slowly dying while his own son watched. "I'm coming back tomorrow, and we're going to figure this out." Maria barely slept that night. She could quit and walk away. She could call the police anonymously. Or she could do what every instinct told her was insane: help Richard Whitmore escape. The next morning, she arrived at the estate with a plan. She went through her normal cleaning routine: coffee, supplies, starting upstairs. She had to appear normal, give Marcus no reason to suspect anything had changed. But at 10 o'clock, she made her move. She descended into the basement with her phone ready. "We need to work fast," she told Richard. "I'm going to record everything. Video of you explaining what happened, time-stamped proof you're alive and imprisoned. Then I'm finding a way into your study to photograph every document I can." For the next hour, Richard talked while Maria recorded. He explained the timeline, the financial details, the names of everyone involved. He showed her the chains, the marks on his wrists, his deteriorating health. It was damning evidence, if they could get it to the right people. "I need to upload this somewhere Marcus can't reach it," Maria said, "and send copies to someone you trust." "Jonathan Chen," Richard said immediately. "He's been my attorney for 20 years. His office is in Manhattan. If you can get evidence to him, he'll act on it without question." Maria had configured her phone months ago with automatic cloud backup and emergency contact protocols. As she recorded, everything was being uploaded and backed up automatically. Insurance against her phone being taken or destroyed. "Now the study," she said, "where Marcus has been forging your documents. I need to see what's in there." The study was on the 2nd floor, locked with an old-fashioned keyhole. Maria had learned to pick simple locks over 30 years of housekeeping. This one took her 3 minutes. Inside, she found exactly what she needed: filing cabinets full of financial documents, estate planning folders, insurance policies, power of attorney documents with Richard's signature, slightly off, possibly forged. And then, tucked in the back of the bottom drawer, she found a file labeled Project Completion. Inside were notes in Marcus's handwriting. March 15th, implementation date, subject confined, daily monitoring required. March 22nd, Subject showing signs of deterioration. Weight loss approximately 15 pounds. April 1st. Insurance claim prepared. Death certificate template ready. Awaiting natural expiration. It was all there. A murder plan documented like a business proposal. Maria photographed everything, her hands shaking. She was closing the filing cabinet when she heard footsteps in the hallway. Someone was in the house. The door opened. A man in his 30s stood there, Richard's eyes, but none of his warmth. Sharp features, carefully styled hair, casual blazer over jeans. Marcus Whitmore. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. "I'm Maria, the housekeeper. Mr. Pierce hired me. I was cleaning and—" "This room is supposed to be locked." Marcus stepped into the study, his eyes calculating what she might have seen. "It was open. I thought maybe I should clean in here, too." "You thought wrong. This room is private." His voice turned dangerous. "What's your name again?" "Maria Santos." Marcus pulled out his phone and called Pierce, his eyes never leaving her face. After a brief conversation, he hung up and studied her carefully. "Maria, have you been in the basement?" Her heart stopped, but she'd prepared for this. "The basement, sir? No, I didn't even know there was a basement." Marcus wasn't convinced. "Show me your phone." Maria's mind raced. The videos of Richard were on her phone. If Marcus saw them, it was over. But she'd learned long ago to keep 2 photo apps. One regular, one hidden in a folder that looked like a calculator app. All the evidence was hidden. She handed him the phone showing only innocent photos, her grandchildren, recipes, cleaning before and afters. Marcus scrolled through slowly, suspiciously. He checked her messages, her call history. Finally, he handed it back. "Get your things. You're done here. Family's coming home early." It was a dismissal. He wanted her out. Maria collected her supplies, acutely aware of Marcus watching. She looked at the basement door one last time, knowing Richard was down there listening, wondering what was happening. As she loaded her car, Marcus leaned down to her window. "If I find out you've been anywhere you shouldn't, or if you talk to anyone about this house, I can make your life very difficult. I have resources you can't imagine. Understand?" Maria nodded and drove away, watching Marcus in her rearview mirror. Richard was still in that basement, still chained, still dying. And she'd just been thrown out. 3 months later, Maria stood in a Connecticut courthouse watching Marcus Whitmore sentenced to 35 years in federal prison for kidnapping, attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. Gerald Pierce received 20 years as an accomplice. The trial had been sensational. The billionaire, the basement, the brave housekeeper, cable news couldn't get enough. Maria had been offered book deals, movie rights, speaking engagements. She'd turned them all down. What she hadn't turned down was Richard Whitmore's offer of a job, not as a housekeeper, as director of the Whitmore Foundation, a new charitable organization dedicated to protecting vulnerable seniors from financial exploitation and elder abuse. $50 million in endowment, complete operational control given to Maria. "You saved my life," Richard had told her from his hospital bed. "Now help me save others." Richard had survived, though barely. 6 weeks of starvation had taken a devastating toll. He'd needed months of physical therapy, nutritional rehabilitation, and psychological counseling. But he was alive. His daughter Catherine had moved back from Singapore. She'd sold her business and dedicated herself to rebuilding their family. The Whitmore estate had been sold. Richard couldn't bear to live there. He'd bought a smaller place with no basement. After the sentencing, Maria walked out to find reporters waiting. "Miss Santos, how do you feel about the verdict?" She stopped and faced the cameras. "I feel grateful. Grateful that Richard Whitmore is alive and healing. Grateful that justice was served, and grateful I was in the right place at the right time." "What do you want people to learn from this?" Maria thought carefully. "I want people to know we all have more power than we think. I'm just a housekeeper. That's all I've ever done. But when I saw someone who needed help, I had to act. We all have that responsibility to each other, to not look away when something's wrong just because it seems too big for us to handle. Will you continue working with the foundation? Absolutely. There are millions of elderly people vulnerable to exploitation by family members and caregivers. We're going to fight for them. We're going to make sure what happened to Richard doesn't happen to others. If you could say something to Marcus Whitmore, what would it be? Maria paused. I'd tell him that love can't be bought or inherited. It has to be earned. He threw away the most valuable thing he had, his father's trust, for money that wouldn't have made him happy anyway. I hope he has 35 years to think about that. She walked toward the parking lot where Richard and Catherine were waiting. Richard rolled down the window. He looked good, color in his cheeks, weight regained. Ready to get back to work? Board meeting tomorrow. Maria smiled. Ready. But first, my grandson's birthday. I promised I'd help make dinner. Of course, family first. Richard's voice caught on the word. Always family first. Catherine leaned over. Maria, we're having a dinner party next week. Close friends. We'd love if you and your family could come. Not as an employee, as our friend. Tears pricked Maria's eyes. In 30 years of cleaning houses, she'd never been invited as a guest. I'd be honored. As they drove away, Maria looked back at the courthouse one last time. This experience had changed her life in ways she was still processing. She'd gone from invisible, just another housekeeper, to someone who mattered, someone who'd made a difference. But more than that, she'd proven something to herself. Courage wasn't about being unafraid, it was about being terrified and acting anyway. She thought about that moment in the basement when she'd first heard Richard's voice calling for help. How every instinct had screamed at her to run, how she'd chosen to stay. That choice had saved a life, and in the process, it had changed her own. The story of Maria Santos and Richard Whitmore shocked the nation in 2019. But beyond the headlines, it exposed uncomfortable truths about elder abuse and family betrayal. According to the National Council on Aging, 1 in 10 Americans aged 60 and older experience some form of elder abuse. Financial exploitation by family members is one of the most common and least reported forms. Marcus Whitmore's case was extreme, but the dynamics weren't unique. A family member with access and opportunity, an elderly parent who trusts too much, a system that fails to detect abuse until it's too late. The Whitmore Foundation has since helped more than 15,000 elderly Americans protect themselves from financial exploitation. They've lobbied for stronger elder protection laws in 12 states and trained thousands of professionals to recognize warning signs. Richard, now 66, remains active in the foundation's work, speaking publicly about his experience to break the silence surrounding elder abuse. Catherine has become an advocate too, focusing on the psychological trauma of family betrayal. She's written a memoir about learning her brother tried to kill their father. And Maria? She leads the foundation but still works as a housekeeper 1 day a month, not because she needs the money, but because it keeps her grounded. I clean houses because it's honest work, she said in a recent interview. Finding Richard didn't make me a different person. It revealed who I already was, someone who helps people. The setting changed, but not the purpose. Marcus Whitmore is serving his sentence at a federal prison in Pennsylvania. He's eligible for parole in 2044. He's declined all interview requests and receives no visitors. Richard attends a victim support group weekly. Catherine is engaged. And Maria's grandson, whose birthday she rushed to after the sentencing, just started college on a scholarship from the Whitmore Foundation. Sometimes the hero doesn't wear a cape. Sometimes she wears cleaning gloves and carries a mop. Sometimes she's the person you don't notice, moving quietly through your home, seeing everything, saying little. Until the moment when silence is no longer an option. Until an ordinary person has to make an extraordinary choice. Maria Santos made that choice, and in doing so, she proved that heroism isn't about who you are, it's about what you do when someone needs you, even if that someone is a stranger, even if helping them might cost you everything. even if you're just the housekeeper.